This rendition of Aberdeen Railway Station was opened on the 4th of November 1867 and opened as Aberdeen Joint to replace Aberdeen Guild Street and Aberdeen Waterloo. The station currently standing was built as Aberdeen Joint Station between 1913 and 1916, replacing the 1867 structure of the same name on the same site. The station and the new Denburn Valley line enabled the main line from the south and the commuter line from Deeside to connect with the line from the north. The lines from the south had previously terminated at the adjacent Aberdeen Guild Street. Even this had not been Aberdeen's first railway station. That distinction belonged to the previous terminus a short way south of Ferry Hill. After the construction of the joint station, Guild Street Station became a good station. Some of its track remained today, however the vast majority of the site was cleared in 2005. Prior to the construction of the joint station, lines from the north had terminated at Aberdeen Waterloo, a short but inconvenient distance along the edge of the harbour. This too became a good station after the construction of the joint station. There was no longer a station at this site, but a good service runs approximately weekly to the industrial operations there. The Waterloo tracks join the north-south connecting Denburn Valley line in the Kitty Brewster area of the city, where the very first terminus of the lines from the north had briefly been, before the extension and the building of the Waterloo station. As far north as Inverurie, these follow the route of the Aberdeenshire Canal, which had been purchased and filled by the Great North of Scotland Railway. As a result of the grouping of the railways under the Railways Act of 1921, Aberdeen was shared by the London North Eastern Railway and the London Midland and Scottish Railway, each company running the station for a year and then handing its administration to the other company. At nationalisation in 1948, it then became part of British Rail. As soon as the changes during the period, which saw a general contraction of the railway service in the UK, some services were cut in the 1960s. These included running north to Peterhead and Ellen, as well as the Deeside line. Suburban services were heavily reduced, and the Grand Suburban Ticket Office, located at the corner of Guild Street and Bridge Street, was closed. It now houses a hair and beauty salon. A number of platforms at the station were also reduced considerably in the early 1970s, from 13 to the late 1950s, early 60s, down to just 7 by 1973. The rationalisation progress saw the removal of all the North End Bay platforms to allow for the redevelopment of that part of the site. However, significant improvements under British Rail included the introduction of the Intercity 125 high-speed service from London and other major destinations, as well as the introduction of new rolling stock. Other improvements include a new travel centre opened in 1978 and under the British Rail's regional brand Scotrail. A new major station renovation was completed in the 1980s. The station was also re-signalled around the time, with 2 more bay platforms, 1 and 2, taken out of use along with the former platform through platforms 8 and 9. This left just 5 platforms 3 through 7 in regular use, the layout which remains in operation to this very day. The 2 former bay platforms remain in place and are used as sidings. The former double tracks through 8 and 9 has now been signalled, but the platforms' faces remain. At privatisation in the mid-1990s, ownership of the station passed to Railtrack, along with all stations and other infrastructure in England, Wales and Scotland, while day-to-day management passed to the train operating franchise Scotrail, a division of National Express. Following the quasi-nationalisation of the railway infrastructure in the early 2000s, the station is now owned by Network Rail. In 2004, train operating franchise and station management were then overtaken by First ScotRail, who continue to operate the station trains, but the station and all the signages are now branded with the ScotRail logo, typeface and rolling stock livery. British Rail's motor rail service, which ran between London and Aberdeen from 1968 until Friday the 26th of May 1995. Plans to reintroduce the motor rail services from London to Aberdeen, operated by Motor Rail Limited, were announced in 1998 and confirmed in March of 1999. The Historical Environmental Scotland designate the current building and road overbridge as a Category A, noting that it is the last major station to be completed in Scotland in the period of 1913 to 1920. The station had gradually become run down in the last years of British Rail. In the late 2000s, the railway station and bus station were included in an extensive Union Square development, primarily sited on the abandoned railway goods yard east of the station. As part of this, the railway station was completely refurbished. The original sandstone building became the centrepiece of a covered plaza for the new shopping centre and entertainment complex, while the granite-faced building was constructed to house station offices, a new travel centre and other facilities. The car park at the front of the station was replaced by a public square providing pedestrian access to the station and to Union Square. In addition, direct access was provided from the station concourse to Union Square and through to the bus station, creating a completely covered transport interchange. The refurbished station opened in 2009, followed by Union Square itself a few months later. Plans to relocate the ticket office and passenger waiting rooms, as well as upgrades to the taxi rank and concourse, were approved by Aberdeen County City Council in December 2018, with the work due to start in spring of 2019. Under a separate scheme, the vacant Athol House building to the north of the station is to be demolished, making way for a construction of a public square, hotel and student accommodation, as well as improved connections between the city's main Union Street and the station. This development could allow the current disused platforms 8 and 9 to be brought back into service. As of early 2019, the station's glass roof is undergoing replacement by a polycarbonate panels as well as part of a £9 million upgrade. In June of 2020, Scotrail announced it would proceed with the modification to the ticket office, waiting room and taxi rank as soon as it was safe to do so following the coronavirus pandemic. There are no plans to reinstate the platforms yet, but these developments are expected to be completed by the end of 2021. It hasn't happened yet. So we'll get started here at Aberdeen with the arrival of 800 107, working 5 Echo 11, terminating off Aberdeen Clay Hills car depot. Departing off in the distance is 43034 top and tail with 43141, working the 0639 Scotrail service to Glasgow Queen Street via Dundee. Next up we see the departure of 158-716, working 5A60 from Aberdeen Clay Hills car depot to Inverurie. Next in sees the arrival of 43138 top and tail with 43183, working the 0708 for Scotrail service from Inverness to Edinburgh Waverley. Arriving to terminate off Aberdeen Clay Hills under the head code 5T10 is 43148 and 43179.
Now approaching platform 7 is the 0718 Scotrail service to Inverness. This train is formed of 2 carriages.
One out now as we see 158703 past 158726, working the 0718 Scotrail service of Montrose to Inverness and the 0718 Scotrail service of Inverurie to Montrose, respectively. Next in to arrive is 158711, working the 0730 Scotrail service of Montrose to Inverurie. Next in to arrive 7 minutes early is 73968, working the 1A25 portion of the Caledonian Sleeper from London Euston to Aberdeen. And the final train to depart is 43179 and 43148, working the 0738 Scotrail service to Glasgow Queen Street. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed what you saw, click on the 2 videos here at the end screen. Helps out the channel. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you are new and got this far. And we'll see you all in the next video, folks, wherever that may take us. We'll see you then, folks.